Welcome to Window on Well Street, a program that shares information about delayed food sensitivities. Sensitivities that may cause symptoms like headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, fatigue, stress, and even ADD or ADHD, just to mention a few. I'm Robert Chesney, your host, and in today's program, we'll be discussing the Immuno Blood Print. Now, this is a simple blood test that identifies foods, many of which could be the cause of these symptoms. We're so happy to have with us today from her practice in Fresno, California, Dr. Mikkel Parsons. Welcome, Dr. Parsons.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
In your practice, you spend a lot of time with parents, and this whole problem of ADD and ADHD has been quite a challenge. As you well know, the media has reported issues with taking medications, particularly for children like Ritalin, Adderall, Dexedrine, and others. So what I understand is that you're finding in your practice prescriptions and medications are not always the best answers. Can you share some of your experience?
Absolutely. Let me go back years ago when I was just starting out in practice. I was working with actually a massage therapist of mine who had children, and she was sharing with me that her son would go through these bouts of being crazy, bouncing off the walls. At times he would be aggressive, and she couldn't figure out, was this a disciplinary problem or was there something else going on? And I encouraged her to bring him in, and we did a workup and discovered that he had some sensitivities. And for him, what it did was it created this ADHD hyperactive problem for him. Now, she followed through, eliminated the foods that were contributing to this, and he'd been off of them for maybe 3 or 4 months. And he was 6 years old at the time, and he felt better, he behaved better. Everyone around him enjoyed being with him, where before it was a problem. And they were at an event, mom wasn't prepared, and he ended up eating some of those things that he was sensitive to. I get a call at 10 o'clock that night. She was panicked. He was out of control. She didn't understand why. I had them come in the next morning, and this little 6-year-old, who was just a doll, walked into my room, picked up a stool, and was going to throw it through the glass window. This was not his typical behavior. He was out of control. That is the power of some of these sensitivities for these kids. And with children, they are going to act out instead of saying, "Mommy, my tummy hurts." It affects them on a brain-based level. So for a lot of these kids, they're in these schools and their teachers are pulling their hair out because they think that he needs to be medicated, when in fact his diet just needs to be changed. So for people who are wondering, am I going to have to drug my kid to get him to calm down? Don't go there. That is not the first avenue of defense. There are many other things that can be done, and checking their sensitivities is absolutely a must.
That's very helpful to us, Dr. Parsons. I'm sure that before testing, you hear many parents say, "Well, Dr. Parsons, I feed my children good food. They eat meat, bread, eggs every day. In fact, they even eat fruit, and I control the amount of sweets they eat. I just can't understand how a sensitivity with food can occur, especially when they're eating good food."
One of the things that's hard for us to wrap our brains around is we have all of these wonderful healthy foods. Food is not supposed to be our enemy. But because we live in such a chemically laden world, we're under stress, the game changes because our body chemistry has changed. So for some people, these healthy, natural foods really act as an enemy in our body. And when that happens, then it's going to manifest in a symptom. So just because something is deemed healthy does not mean that it's healthy for you. Now, the nice thing is, once you eliminate those sensitivities, when you get to the reintroduction phase, many of those things you're going to be able to reintroduce into the diet. And by properly rotating your foods and eating a variety of foods, the chance of becoming sensitive to that again definitely goes down. But just because something's healthy doesn't mean that it's healthy for everyone.
Dr. Parsons, it could be that a parent would say to you, "Gee, I don't want my child singled out as a weirdo just because they have to eat certain foods." How would you suggest parents offset that?
That's probably one of the biggest challenges I see in dealing with my pediatric patients. It is very, very difficult. I have my health coach here in the office. She has 4 children. And at church, in one of the Sunday school classes, the leaders of that Sunday school class didn't have a problem with giving all of the kids root beer and candy as a snack. She did. She's been kind of targeted as one of those crazy people. How crazy is it to want to feed your children healthy, natural food? We really have been skewed as a society due to marketing. So the best thing that you can do is show your child how they feel on and off of those offending foods. Usually by the time a child is 5 or 6 years old, they can comprehend how they feel. And I really work with my parents in showing, look, Susie, when you eat this, remember you get a headache. When you have this, you get a tummy ache. Whatever the issue is, that child will then take control over their foods. So when the child is on board and they take ownership and they're going to play at Sarah's house and Sarah's mom says, here, have a snack, and they ask, does that contain corn? Wow, that parent takes a step back, because most kids are going to grab and eat, not even think about what it is they're putting in their bodies. But when you take it down to the child's level and start coaching them, yeah, it's awkward, yes, it's uncomfortable. The worst case scenario is you are going somewhere unprepared, so they feel left out. But as long as you bring food along with them and know ahead of time what's going to be fed, then you're going to have much more control, and ultimately you are responsible for your child and your child's health. And if more of us start to become more firm and protective over what we're allowing our children to have, we're going to have a lot healthier population, and the childhood illnesses are going to start to decrease.
You've been so helpful to us, Dr. Parsons. If I may ask you just one last question, what would you advise a parent that's seeing a family doctor and they're noticing signs that there could be something wrong with their child, but their doctor says, oh, don't worry about it, there's no problem, and this food sensitivity thing, I don't believe in it anyway. How would you advise them?
Well, I hear that a lot. One of the things is follow your intuition. You know that child better than anyone else. And if you intuitively feel that something is off, follow through with it. There's a very rigid mindset when it comes to allopathic physicians, and it's just because of their training. They are trained to wait until you get a disease. What we're seeing clinically are things that aren't necessarily a disease, but it has a negative impact on someone's health. So if you go to a practitioner and they say you're crazy, or you need to quit worrying, you're nervous Nelly, go to someone else. You have every right to get a second, third, or fourth opinion. Now, if you go to a healthcare practitioner and they do testing and there's nothing wrong, then that's a blessing. But what if you stopped and you didn't pursue it further? And 5 or 6 years down the road, you realize, oh my gosh, Sarah is allergic to dairy. That's 5 or 6 years of damage that has been done. And at some point, that can become irreversible. So follow your intuition. Go for it. Seek out help. And make sure you're doing everything you can to get everyone in your family healthy.
Well, Dr. Parsons, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you much continued success in your practice. We'll continue with Window on Wells Street after the break, but I want to encourage those of you watching who may have a family member, a friend, or even a coworker who's experiencing similar health issues. Forward the link to this video to them. They'll be so grateful. And if you haven't had your immunoblood please learn more about it and get yourself tested. I did. It's made a tremendous difference for me. Remember, there's a hidden link between what you eat and how you feel. I'm Robert Chesney, and we'll be right back with more Window on Wells Street.